Hey friends, now today we're going to have a look at the newest release of MorphOS, the long-awaited version 3.10 that finally got its release at the back end of last month. Now, even though this did come out at the end of March, I will admit it's kind of took me until this week to really sit down and give it a proper try. I've been so busy at work, just haven't had a chance to look at it over the last 2 weeks. But I think it will be worth the wait because there are some massive additions and changes to version 3.10. In fact, from what I've read, this is one of the biggest updates in MorphOS history, certainly since version 2.0. Now, if you're not too familiar with the history of MorphOS, to quickly summarise, it is a next-generation Amiga-like operating system. So it did start its life back in the late 90s, running on classic Commodore Amiga computers like the Amiga 1200 and the Amiga 4000 that were fitted with PowerPC accelerators. So these were third-party chips that you'd put into the Amiga to give it a big power increase. Very soon, it outgrew those classic Amiga computers, and they ported it to custom PowerPC hardware, and then to more commonly used boards like the PowerPC Macintoshes, which I run it on right here. Now, usually I run MorphOS on a PowerMac G5. For the purposes of this video, though, I'm going to do a fresh install on a Mac Mini G4. But I will say, even doing the upgrade install and the fresh install, it was really quick. I mean, you know, the team at MorphOS are really good at getting these installers really quick and efficient. So it took about 3 minutes in total. You download the ISO, burn it to a disk, or do it from a USB stick. And the upgrade on my G5 took about 3 minutes. It was actually a bit less on the G4 doing a fresh install. Now, MorphOS does run various types of software, including native MorphOS applications that can, take advantage of all the libraries and the operating system in its fullest. There are programs written for the old power-up and warp-up boards as well on the PowerPC accelerated Amigas that mostly work. And it also runs system-friendly classic Commodore Amiga programs using a built-in Motorola 68K emulation layer. So stuff that needs the old Amiga chipset, like games like Cannon Fodder and Lemmings and stuff like that, usually won't work out of the box, but a lot of the old applications will. Now, there are some requirements to run MorphOS on a PowerPC Mac, but I will say it is the most affordable way to do it. I got my PowerMac G5 for free, and my G4 Mini, I think, cost me around £30. And even though they're not that powerful in terms of Macintosh computers today, to run classic Amiga or NG Amiga stuff even, they are still in the higher end of power in terms of those machines. So you do get quite a lot of bang for your buck there. Now, there are only specific models that it works with, and they need, for example, ATI graphics. It doesn't work with NVIDIA, but you can get the exact list of which machines you need to look out for on their website, and I'll include a link to that in the video description. And although new releases have been a little bit quiet for the last couple of years, they did go through a stage at one point of putting out a new version pretty much every few months back in 2014 and 2015. But version 3.10 is actually the first new release since June of 2015. So it's been about 3 years in the making. And the changelog for MorphOS 3.10 is massive. In fact, scrolling through it on my keyboard here, it's 26 pages long, so there's loads of new stuff in here. Some under the hood, some a little bit more visible, but the team at MorphOS Library have actually made this really handy bullet point list of some of the major changes and new additions in MorphOS 3.10, which at a glance is a lot easier to look through than that massive 26-page changelog. So I'll put a link to that in the video description as well. Now, as I mentioned on my main PowerMac G5, I did an upgrade install of MorphOS 3.9 because I've got Chrysalis Pack installed, which gives you like a bundle of pre-installed and pre-configured programs, all set up, free to download. A lot of people don't like it, but it does save a lot of headaches. And I did an upgrade install that seemed to work just fine. But for this video, I'm going to do a clean install on a PowerMac G4, just in case I run into any problems, and we can't blame that on any old files that are lurking on my hard disk then. Now, the first thing that we see in MorphOS version 3.10, and the first big visual change, is the introduction of some new themes for Ambient Desktop. Now, Ambient is kind of like the MorphOS equivalent of the Amiga Workbench, and the way you get these new themes is actually a little bit cryptic. I will admit, I had to do a bit of scouring in the forums and on IRC to figure out how you do the complete change here. They could do with simplifying this for normal users, but if you are curious, this is how you activate them. Now, to change the skin, you go to the Settings menu, System, Screens, and then into Ambient. And there are several new themes or skins that have been included in MorphOS version 3.10. There's Albolus, there's Eta, one called Natio, And the new one that they seem to be using as the default on the screenshots of version 3.10, not installed out of the box, curiously, but this seems to be the one that they're talking about most of all, is Origo. Now, this is kind of Amiga-inspired, looking at the gadgets, but it's got quite a modern, flat look to it as well, so I'm a big fan of this, actually. And then you'll want to change all of the buttons and gadgets as well. So you need to go into the MUI presets from Settings, MUI, Settings again, and Presets, and that will change essentially the other half of the graphical user interface to match the skin that you've set. So it is a little bit cryptic. It could do with a little bit of improvement for new users, or, I've used MorphOS for years. I'd actually forgotten how to do that and had to ask in IRC, so that is one area you guys could probably improve to make it a bit simpler, I think. And another big change to the Ambient desktop is that it now supports SVG files as icons, scalable vector graphics. Now, all you need to do is rename an SVG file to .info, and then you can use them for icons on your programs or your projects and scale them to any size without any quality loss. So that really does give a much more professional look to the icons on Ambient desktop. And also, if you've got any files without icons, previously you had to do show all icons, or maybe you'd have to do that all the time, and making one was a bit of an effort, copying it from elsewhere. Now you can quickly make an icon for a program or a project. All you've got to do is go to the file info, and there is a new setting to create an icon. All you do is click on that, and voila, it now has a proper icon. Really simple. And this is quite an interesting change. They've also brought back the trash can from the Amiga. Now, I will admit, I never really used a trash can all that much on the classic Amiga, but this time it is a bit more useful. It's actually a file system-based virtual trash can. I've always been of the opinion that if I delete something, I know I want to get rid of it. I very rarely want to undelete something, so I won't use it, but I know there has been some demand for it, and it does give it that kind of Amiga-like flavour, so I'm all for the return of the trash can if you want to use it. And under the hood, there has been some other changes like faster copying routines and optimizations made to Ambient 2. There are some new screen bar modules as well. Now, all of the default ones have now got this kind of flat look to accompany the new skins. And I've got a lot of third-party ones installed on my 3.9 install that's been upgraded on my PowerMac G5. But many of the modules have been rewritten or redesigned and have got new themes as well to match the new look of MorphOS. Another neat feature is that you can set the system time automatically from internet time servers. Now, I've had a third-party solution to do this on MorphOS for at least 10 years, but having it built into the operating system and the fact that it automatically adjusts for daylight savings time is a really neat feature and much appreciated too. Now, the days of needing screensavers are kind of gone, meaning that most of us don't use CRT monitors anymore, at least not in our modern systems. But I do actually still like having a screensaver. If you walk away for a bit, it can be a bit of an impressive demo. And there are a couple of new screen blankers, as they're called on the Amiga, installed with MorphOS 3.10. One of them is called Game of Life. And the other, I think this is my favourite, is called Icon Wall. And there have been some new applications and utilities bundled with MorphOS version 3.10. The old school Amiga clock, that still exists in the utilities drawer, and it has got a nice new update with some cool new skins as well. I think this is my favourite one. And there is Flow Studio. There is a replacement for the Scribble editor that was previously part of the MorphOS SDK, and it was bundled with the last couple of releases of MorphOS version 3.x. This, though, Flow Studio is much more advanced. It's now essentially a fully featured IDE environment, which means it's great if you want to get programming and get making your own applications for MorphOS, and you can download the full SDK for free from the MorphOS website. They've also bundled a simple audio recorder that, it's not too fully featured, but does what it says on the tin. There is a CSV viewer if you want to view CSV documents and spreadsheets. Key Explorer is a replacement for the ancient keystroke utility. And there is some enhanced MIDI support in version 3.10 of MorphOS as well. There's a MIDI play command and also this generic MIDI keyboard that's been included with it as well, a MIDI piano that I did try to get it to make some sound out of my sound card on my PowerMac G5, but apparently you do need some dedicated MIDI hardware for this to work, according to the people I was talking to in IRC, so I can't test it out at the moment, but it's a pretty cool new feature. It's not going to compete with AAA games, but they have included a new game with MorphOS version 3.10 as well that might be good to kill 10 minutes. It's called Pixel Cross. And there have been some upgrades and improvements to the bundled web browser Odyssey, which is a WebKit-based browser. This one doesn't actually have a new version, just giving it a little bit of a polish in the UI department, and also done a few bug fixes and updates, meaning that stuff like YouTube streaming has been re-enabled again. Obviously dependent on your hardware, but you should have no problems playing SD videos on a PowerMac G4 and G5, maybe even some HD ones on the higher-end G5s. Probably not going to be able to run 4K content on 10-year-old PowerPC Macs, though, if I'm honest. And something else really cool that has just been introduced, not part of MorphOS as yet because it's just a public beta at the moment, but there is a brand new email client in development, and this is called Iris. Now, this is specifically made for MorphOS and utilizes a lot of the new features that have been introduced in version 3.10. IMAP-centered email, and also supports stuff like Auth2 for Gmail and Outlook.com, so it means that we will finally be able to get full HTML emails with rich media in there, embedded images and custom styles too. So it is going to be a big improvement over the more traditional Amiga-based email clients like Yam and Simple Mail. So there is a public beta if you want to give this a download and test it out. And from my initial test, it actually runs pretty well. And there are some really big under-the-hood changes to MorphOS version 3.10. If you've got a desire for new hardware, you will pay a lot more for it. In fact, you'll pay about £2,000 if you want to get hold of an Amiga 1 X5000 computer, but you can now run MorphOS on the X5000, and a lot of people do dual boot it with Amiga OS 4.1. There is 2D support for lots of new graphics cards as well. File transfers via USB have been improved, and you can now do several at the same time. They've also implemented support for Xbox One and PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 game controllers too. There's new support and drivers for audio cards, USB devices, scanners, printers. I don't actually do much printing on MorphOS, but there is a brand new PBT, PostScript printer description-based print system included in MorphOS version 3.10. There are lots of new MUI libraries and reggae classes that are kind of like data types on the Amiga. And if you're into programming, one thing that people have been going wild for on the forums is that MorphOS has actually got extensive Objective-C support. So that should make, in the long term, porting applications over to MorphOS a lot easier, and the new SDK for version 3.10 is now available on the MorphOS website as well. So we have really just scratched the surface of the new features and updates in MorphOS 3.10, but it is a really big update, and from my perspective, it's great to see that MorphOS development is still on track and the team is still working really hard. And work behind the scenes is continuing on a version of MorphOS for AMD x86 CPUs. So that means eventually it is going to break away from the shackles of PowerPC architecture, which it needs to do because, PowerPC on the desktop is a rapidly fading thing. And when it breaks away from those shackles, you will be able to run MorphOS on more affordable, more powerful general PC hardware. But for now, MorphOS version 3.10 is a free update. If you're a registered user of version 2.0 to 3.9, there is a free demo available for everybody else if you want to try it out, and then you can register it for €79 for one laptop or a desktop computer, and there is that special pricing available for €49 for Effica PowerPC boards and SAM 460 systems. And if you want to learn more about MorphOS, a new book has just been released by Adam Zalipa, and this is called MorphOS Volume 1. If you want a more traditional manual, that is available to buy now, and I'll put a link in the video description. So thank you so much for checking out this video, a fantastic new update. It's good to see MorphOS back on track and rocking. If you've got any questions or any comments, please do leave them in the video comments box. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.